We'll also see how IKS still survived in spite of a institutional modality of destruction. What is the current status of IKS and what could be the future of IKS? Some action points. So before we look at IKS, let's look at just knowledge system. So what do we mean by a knowledge system? A knowledge system is basically an organized structure and a dynamic process. Very interesting, contradictory term, because the more organized a structure is, the less dynamic it will be. And the more dynamic a process is, the less organization it will have. But over thousands of years of evolution, as we will see down the line, this knowledge system has evolved. It mainly looks at generating and representing content, component, classes, or the types of knowledge which could be domain specific or characterized by domain relevant features as defined by the user or consumer of this knowledge. The second is it's reinforced by a set of logical relationships that connect the content of various components or attributes of this knowledge system. Okay. So it's not very arbitrary. There is a lot of logic, meaning, economic issues involved in various knowledge components, and there is a relationship between the use of these concepts in practice. Okay. What to observe in any knowledge system? Because it is organized and dynamic, it is more closed than open, meaning it is far more rigid, and that rigidity gives it a very organized structure, but it's not 100% rigid. There is scope for changes, and that makes it dynamic. Because it is dynamic, changes are possible, yet the changes are very slow. If it is very well organized, it becomes very rigid, like our bureaucracy in India. Okay. Changes are slow, very slow. Sometimes people don't tolerate the slowness of change and it becomes explosive. These are called reforms. Okay. So one example for this is how the Protestant sect in Christianity emerged. For example, almost for 1,000 years, it was all Catholic system. And in the Middle Ages in Northern Europe, this turbulence built in. And so the Protestant sect emerged out of it, which is a significant component. It has also happened in other systems like Shias and Sunnis. It has happened hundreds of times in the Hindu system. So we will discuss some of that. Okay. So many independent knowledge systems exist and have been more competing than cooperating. This is the problem with the world. It's not that one knowledge system is superior to other. A large amount of knowledge systems is highly subjective, depending on it's like simple. You are in the Middle East and you don't have water, so you don't take a bath for once in a week or once in 10 days. You can't do that in India. Okay. You will fall sick because of the tropical climate and the humidity. So you can't pass certain attributes and features in one to another and claim that it is universal. This is the problem with the world. Okay. So instead of cooperating, meaning taking the best from others, we have seen historically that one knowledge system wants to dominate others at any cost. And today it's also happening. For example, the screen culture, which we are now living. I'm interacting with you through a screen and you are all seeing me on a screen. This is not a good practice. This is not even a good culture. This is not even very effective. Okay. But it seems to be dominating. The screen is probably the most universal symbol today in the world. Okay. So knowledge systems are evolved entities So it's not overnight that happens, even though technological changes are far quicker than socio-cultural changes, but they are evolved entities and are characterized by behavior of people who use or are dependent on this. And there are variety of people who depend on this. Some are fundamentalists, some are practitioners, some are observers, some are skeptics, and the majority are blind followers. Okay. This is apart from the material aspects, which is a very new thing. Slowly, the knowledge system is getting highly influenced by material. Today, you are worried about price of petrol and diesel because all of you use a two-wheeler or four-wheeler. In another 4 or 5 years, all of you will be worried about charge of a battery because it's going to be electric vehicles more and more. And now people will not bother much about petrol and diesel. In another 50 years, the terminology of petrol and diesel may actually disappear. Something else may come. So these are the things that are happening. And as we move towards a more techno-economic basis for life and society all over, more and more material aspects will dominate our actions in knowledge system. Okay. Let's look at practical examples. Consider the healthcare system. And in the healthcare system, there are subsystems like Ayurveda and allopathy, which are the two dominant things in Indian subcontinent, even though there are other forms like homeopathy, Unnani, Siddha medicine, naturopathy, so many things are there, but these two dominate. But you can already experience what is happening. When you go to Ayurvedic doctor, he will not suggest any allopathy medicine to be taken. And if you go to an allopathic doctor, he will say, don't take any Ayurvedic medicine. It is not health related. It is not good. Very few actually can blend both. I have had good experience where my own family doctor says, take this allopathy medicine for next 15 days. Don't continue with it. Switch over to Ayurveda for a long-term relief. Immediate relief you will get from allopathy. So there are very few who actually cooperate with different knowledge systems and get the best out. Okay. Similarly, you have education system like Gurukula, Madrasa, convent, public schooling. You also have the economic knowledge system, which has barter system, which is little over 8 to 10,000 years old. You have commercial banking. We have post office banking, which gives slightly higher interest. You have something called the Islamic banking, which supposedly doesn't charge interest. Then you have the traditional money lenders who have been there for last 4,000 years. Okay. Many or most of these are consolidated over centuries of use, influenced by cultural, social, economic, political, and in recent times, resource and environmental factors. Okay. For example, you have one of the most prized commodity today. 25 years back, sand was never sold anywhere in India. Whenever people build buildings, they go to the nearest riverbed, just take labor, collect sand, come and start using it. Today, sand is a mafia. In fact, many state governments live only on sand. Similarly, water. Selling water was a crime. Today's selling water is one of the most profitable business. So this is the way knowledge systems change in terms of its components, in terms of its importance, value, and the narrative about it, etc., etc. Okay. So you can observe what is closed and open in these things. Many systems are very rigid and closed. Some are more open. Okay. So the degree varies. How do we understand knowledge system? How do we know we are living in a knowledge system? All knowledge systems exhibit expressions either explicitly, like I'm doing now. I'm sharing a screen through the internet and audio video communication with all of you, or implicitly, or many a times in a very subtle manner. Most of the time, the expressions which are very subtle indicate what knowledge system people are using, etc., etc. Okay. You see that people are riding a motorbike and car, but as they pass by the road and there is a temple or something, they will put their right hand near the chest once and bow and keep moving. So it's a very subtle expression, clearly indicates what knowledge system they follow, etc., etc., all that. Okay. So how do we know what knowledge systems are working? It can be seen the way society handles its economy, education, law and governance, gender and other equalities and inequalities. For example, if you go to Afghanistan now, you will not see any girl going to school after class 5. I think now they have reduced it up to class 3. Okay. So that's one way how what knowledge system operates there. Okay. And it also exemplifies what equality and inequalities are. Similarly, what economy, how education is done, what is law. For example, till about 22 years back, there was no law in India which allowed daughters to have share in paternal property. That was amended. So which means for thousands of years, girls did not have a share in the property of their father. Okay. So that's how the law was for thousands of years. Now it has changed, which means dynamism has acted, and the social pressures, political, also copying from other knowledge system, all happens. Okay. One can also infer from many socio-cultural and attitudinal aspects of citizens, their behavior, conduct, and ethos. For example, we have a festival called Van Mahotsav, where we celebrate and revere a tree, because our Indian subcontinent, where this Indian knowledge system evolved, was filled with trees. And we value, our life has been so dependent on trees for food, for resources, for raw material, for spices, for economic activity, everything. You don't see this in Arabic knowledge system or even the Western knowledge system, because their knowledge system evolved where there were very few trees. Okay. So unfortunately, many aspects of knowledge system is linked with religious beliefs in all cases, strongly or moderately, or if sometimes very subtle. Slowly, this is becoming more objective as we now see more and more science and technology in every society. As modern science and technology gets in, it becomes more objective. So, for example, nobody believes today that God created universe, because science has proved that universe started with Big Bang or whatever it is, 13.5 billion years. You can still have your belief system, but you don't have a proof. The only proof you have is says God did not create the universe. Okay. So it goes against the scriptures in Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, anything you look at. Okay. Yeah. So which is the right knowledge system? There is nothing like a right knowledge system. Each knowledge system has evolved in the socio-cultural complex of its geographical location. It has got influenced by trade and commerce. Today, it has got influenced by modern scientific education, whatever, okay? So all have evolved over time, culture and geography. Geography is very important. The place where the knowledge system evolved, the geography of that place has highly influenced practices in that knowledge system. Trade interaction, some less, some more, some are lost over time. There have been many knowledge systems which don't exist now. They were there few thousand years back. There has also been dramatic shift from one knowledge system to another as the nation developed. For example, Japan. Japan till 16th century was a very conservative Buddhist, Shinto, other forms of Eastern philosophy. But in 16th century, suddenly they decided to have their education molded on the Western education system. So by 18th century, Japan was a highly industrialized society, okay? Unlike China or India. Similar things have happened. For example, Turkey shifted from a very conservative Arabic culture to a Western culture in 1920. And again, by 1940, it has come back to its conservative thing. And North and South America, very interesting, North and South America, it had no other knowledge system other than native knowledge system till 16th century. After that, the Western knowledge system started dominating when Columbus reached the Caribbean islands, okay? Same happened in China, Russia, North Korea. So many things are going on. Many have adapted or reformed. This is very important. Many knowledge systems have adapted or reformed to add value to their knowledge system, lest it should be found redundant. Only way to sustain a knowledge system is to be flexible, adaptive, accommodative, and very sensitive. Otherwise, you will have to resort to violence, a very rigid form of deployment like you see in Iran today or in Afghanistan. Okay. Many knowledge systems are outdated, but they are rigidly deployed, mostly using undemocratic forces and violently. Okay. It is tough since balance is needed and society changes much slower than many individuals. Individuals change much quicker, but society takes time to change. Typically, for example, dress and food habits. Many of us have uh, adapted our dress habits. Many of us have dress which is semi-Western and food also. For example, many of us have a mixed type of food. At least there is a good mix of North Indian and South Indian. But today, at least in urban areas, you have too many of pasta and other pizza things that are coming up. Okay. Similarly, sports, for example, even though the whole nation thrives on cricket, chess is a game which is far more challenging and it was invented in India. But we are now world leaders in cricket. Okay. So these are the things that happen everywhere. Now, what knowledge systems operate? Many knowledge systems are there. Okay. And many of us are not even clear which knowledge system we are using it because it is quite blur in many cases, right? I'm sure all of you have had your breakfast in the morning, which is probably a very traditional item, paratha, poha, idli, dosa, something. But we are now talking in English with each other using an internet, which is a Western technology, okay? Only isolated societies have maintained their original knowledge system and they have little or no interaction with other knowledge systems. There are many such things in India. Andamans has many of them. Even within the subcontinent, plenty are there. For example, there's an interesting tribal group on the Maharashtra-Gujarat border called the Varlis. They also have a very strong indigenous knowledge system of their own. And of course, the Amazon forest is filled with it. But however, a great majority of us use 2 to 3 different knowledge systems for different purpose. For example, we use a Western knowledge system for our education and job, but our food, dress, and living style, our social functions, our marriage laws, everything is based on Indian knowledge system. Okay. So today, much of the world, when you say globalization, all that, what actually means is that we all live in a very blended mode of knowledge system, incorporating 2, 3 diverse things in different proportion. Okay. Now, which knowledge systems exist? Predominantly 4. There are many more, but predominantly 4. One is a Western knowledge system. You find mostly in Europe, North America, and China. It covers about 50% of the world population. Its other name is modern scientific system, but it relates to 75% of the current economy of the world. That's why it's a very, very powerful thing. The reason we are talking to each other in English is not because it's our mother tongue and it's not necessarily the best language. Any of our language, South Indian or North Indian language, is 10 times better and richer and has emotional content with us compared to English. But we are speaking to each other in English because English is an economic language. It's a language of economy of the world. Okay. The other knowledge system is Arabic knowledge system, predominantly found in Middle East and North Africa. Plenty of it in Indian subcontinent, Central Asia, Indonesia and Malaysia. It covers about 30% of the world population, but it also controls 70% of the world's petroleum economy. That's the reason why Abu Dhabi, Sharjah, Dubai, all these have become extremely visible and important places today. 25 years back, people had not even heard the word Abu Dhabi. And in another 25 years, they may not hear that. But today it's important because they are part of the petroleum economy, which runs the entire world by its energy. Okay? The third knowledge system is the Indian knowledge system. And Indian knowledge system doesn't restrict itself to India alone. It's predominantly in the Indian subcontinent, but plenty of it in Southeast Asia, for example, Burma, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, all these places are dominated by Indian knowledge system. Tibet, Japan, little in South Korea, all that. It covers about 25% of the world population. It also relates to about 25% of the world economy. Okay. And this is improving. We are, whether you like it or not, we are the world's most populous country. And thanks to the growth of our economy, our influence is felt very strongly, and slowly components of Indian knowledge system are becoming more important worldwide. I will contrast this with something later and you will be shocked to know what it is. Okay. The last major knowledge system is what is called the indigenous knowledge system. It exists in all parts of the world in isolation, but more so in India, Africa, and South America. They cover only about 5% of the world population, but they are the predecessors to all other knowledge systems. Whether it's the Arabic knowledge system, the Western knowledge system, or the Indian knowledge system, these local indigenous knowledge systems have shaped our knowledge system. For example, even in the Hindu pantheon, what you look at, one of the earliest references to Vishnu is around 2nd century BC. One of the earliest references to Ganesha is around 6th century AD. But there is a reference to Shiva about 2000 BC. Before that, what? There were others. In fact, today, some of the modern gods are very recent. Okay. And if you go to semi-tribal area, you will have more things like Banashankri, which are forest gods, which precedes all this. And there are, of course, regular temples for Banshankri and all in India. So this is the way things have shaped. So we don't know what. In fact, there is a temple for Jayalalitha in Tamil Nadu somewhere. And I'm sure in another few years, you may have temple for Sri Sri Ravi Shankar and Jaggi Vasudev also. We don't know. Okay. So this is the way things have changed. Things have evolved. Things have, grown, whatever you call it. Today, no society lives exclusively on one knowledge system except the indigenous knowledge system. Many of us live a blended version of 2, 3, or 4. For example, the majority of the population in India live a blended version of 2. 80% Indian knowledge system and about 20% Western knowledge system. Whereas the Muslim and the Christian population in India live about 60% Indian knowledge system, about 20 or 25% Arabic or Western knowledge system, and another 10% other thing. Okay. So very few live exclusively in one except the indigenous knowledge. What are we focusing on? We are living in a blended knowledge system. It's dominated by IKS for our social, cultural needs and our emotional needs. And the Western knowledge system is dominated through economic and education. So the formal education, economy, and industry is dominated, which more or less gives significant livelihood and economic growth to the country. What we are questioning is what IKS really is, and can we put more component of IKS into our lifestyle, as it is clear that we are facing more negative issues with a overload of Western knowledge system. For example, the allopathic medicine is slowly getting saturated in the sense that it is creating more problems than solving, because we have what is called AMR, which is 10 times worse than COVID, which has emerged in India mainly because of rampant prescription of antibiotics. So we are the world's largest population with the antimicrobial resistance, which means most antibiotics will not work on us. So we need super antibiotics, which is also creating what is called super bugs and other things. Okay. We are going to face a serious problem in the next 5 years on this, more so in urban area. Okay. So the dream is to live by significant component of Indian knowledge systems only. Now the question is it possible? Is it meaningful or productive? Can we go back to days of charka and weave all the clothes for everybody in the country and also export? No, won't work. Can we make sure everybody gets only Ayurvedic medicine? Difficult, because today getting raw sources of Ayurvedic medicine has become very difficult. Okay, that's why Ayurvedic medicines are very expensive, because there is acute shortage of raw material, and that raw material also pure quality is not available. Okay, so there are so many issues. One of the things you must recognize is you just can't go back blindly. You can slowly incorporate useful things. For example, there is no doubt that the most superior clothing for India is cotton. That's the reason why there are so many skin specialists in India today, because large number of population have started using synthetic clothes, which is not good for Indian climate. In Indian climate, you must have aeration on your skin and you must allow a lot of sweating to happen. Sweat must come out. Only then your toxics in the body are removed. We all wear synthetic clothes, and that's why there's so much of skin problem in younger generation now. Okay, so there's one issue where definitely the indigenous knowledge view of clothing is far superior to anything any other knowledge system has given, and I'm sure there are many others. We'll take a look. So what is the Western knowledge system and a little of the Arabic knowledge system, because the sources of both are in the same geography, is something that's evolved over 3,000 years in the socio-cultural geography of Greece, Rome, and Middle East, what one calls today the Fertile Crescent. All factors have played significant role in shaping it. All of them have one book, which is sacred, and they are all monotheists, and it does not include female and child gods. So children and female gender are more or less removed from the sacredness. Okay. The sacredness is limited to elderly male. Okay. Its main character is belief in redemption at death, and the moral compass grounded in belief in only one God, which is male, and in only one book. They are all what one called the Abrahamic knowledge basis, whether they are Jews, Christians, or Muslims. All three of them have one male God and one book for each of them. Okay. What is interesting about that is they have been institutionalized very early. So you had a single authority long back. For example, Pope today, a new Pope was selected just a week back. That Vatican as a center for Christianity is 2000 years old. Okay. So it's about 313 AD when all these things happened. Okay. They have had tremendous authority all over the world in the name of Christianity. Okay. Rebelling or questioning of tenets is not permitted and results either in excommunication or death. For example, how was Jesus Christ created? Jesus Christ mentioned that his explicit words were the temple of Jerusalem is a den of thieves. That's what he mentioned. So, because of that, he was termed rebellious and put to death. And from him, the Christianity started. Okay. So, when you question and rebel, you are either thrown out or you are put to death, which means there is no healthy debate. And that's one reason why things don't evolve very well. And you can see similar problems after 1,000 years. That's why the Protestant sect created. Okay. The tenets in these are very harsh, cruel, and acquiring in nature, all the time trying to grab. For example, no heaven for non-followers. Okay. An eye for an eye, which is basically copied from Hammurabi Code, and the death to non-believers. This is a very harsh and cruel way to deal with people. Whereas, please see, before that, you had a very interesting kingdom in 8th century BC, what is today North Africa, Tunisia, Morocco side, called the Carthage. And it was a empire far richer and more powerful than the Roman Empire. But they had female gods. There's a female god called Tanit. It was definitely one of the richest cities in the world. Of course, Romans eventually sacked it, and you have famous people from Carthage called Hannibal, all that. But once uh, even the Greeks had female gods, by the time Roman Empire set in and 200 years later Christianity became the state religion, the whole idea of female gods, child gods, everything disappeared. Okay, so they became monotheist and single book like Bible. Okay, this is where all the Western knowledge system and the Arabic. So this is that crescent, what is called the Fertile Crescent. You will see all these places, Sumer, Ur, Babylon, all this, here, Jericho, River Jordan, Jerusalem. These are all common to all Jews, Arabs, and Christians. Entire Arabs, Jews, and Christian history is from this period, in this geography. Okay. Much of the Old Testament is here, and some of the New Testament comes from here. Lot of Arabic knowledge system comes from here, and Judaism is predominantly here. Okay. So what is Indian knowledge system? This is something that's evolved over 5,000 years. So on a time scale and the diversity of challenges, Indian knowledge system is very difficult to beat because it has been more time tested and more rigorously verified in the socio-cultural geography of what is called Bharat. Okay. Here also all factors have played a role. However, there is no one book that is sacred. We are called people of the books because we follow multiple books. We are also polytheists, including significant number of female and child gods. We are also highly non-individualistic, which means we don't have a single authority. Our main character is belief in rebirth, because the other three systems don't believe in rebirth. And our moral compass is grounded in a term called dharma and karma. It has either not been institutionalized or has multiple institutions around different philosophies, thus multiple parallel authority. Each one can suit oneself, move from one to another, or even disown. Even atheists are part of our culture. So you don't need to believe in a God to be part of the society. Okay? Very evolved. And rebelling or questioning of tenets is permitted and frequent. And one of the reasons we have multiple philosophies and multiple holy books. Each one says, I don't agree with what you say. This is what I am saying. My followers will, those who don't like can move somewhere. If there are people who don't like anything, they can stay individually independent from all this. So, in fact, even philosophies like Charvaka were there back around the Buddhist time, around the time of Buddha. There were a large number of Charvaka philosophers. Okay, in fact, Alexander himself encounters a few Charvakas. I think he takes two of them back to his hometown, but he doesn't reach there. But there is very good documentation available to say that these parallel philosophies were accepted. Okay, the tenets in these are very gentle, bountiful, and giving in nature. That's why we don't acquire. We are all the time gifting, dana, dharma is very common. Grabbing comes when there is acute shortage of resources, which you find in Middle East. No trees, no water, no proper food, no proper dress. So what do? You grab, you steal, you indulge in violence. It has happened, okay? You will see how, in what background the Indian knowledge system evolved. This is the background. See, in this kind of beauty, you don't feel petty-minded. You are very liberal, you are very accommodating, you are very forgiving, etc., etc. So this is an interesting, one of the last villages before the Mount Everest. Okay? So this is the kind of beauty which shaped Indian knowledge system. So what of India or Bharat, which is proven to be so important then, and why we are reviving it now? So we'll take a look at how India was around 200 current era, which is approximately about 1,800 to 2,000 years back. This is a mature situation, which means 1,500 to 2,000 years before that, this pattern would have started. It mainly centered around two things: plenty of natural resources, and many natural resources converted to products as a work of skill, which is basically industry. You must remember one thing very clearly. We were the richest nation on earth till 16th century. Our contribution to world GDP was somewhere between 35 and 27% up to 16th century, which is 1/3 of the wealth of the world was created and nurtured in India. That's why everybody came: Dutch, French, Belgians, British, everybody came to India, mainly to loot. Okay. So we will see how it is. Please don't do back channel talking. This was how India was 2,000 years back. Very rich. You see here, right from what is today Bharuch, all the way to Tuticorin. Every 50 kilometers, 50 miles, you had a port which was dealing with Arabia, Eastern Europe, Eastern Africa, Southern Europe. All of them would come here, go by land route, take ship and navigate. So what would they bring? They would bring mostly gold. What would they take back? Precious stones, ivory, jewelry, cotton clothing, spices. India was tremendously rich. This is 2,000 years back. So 3,500 years back, it was like this. You didn't have direct shipping trade. That is because they were not sure how to navigate. They would navigate like this, closely touching the coast, hugging the coast. Sharan Basava, please mute yourself. You're disturbing everybody else. And this was more minimum sea, but a tremendous amount of land route. So trade started immensely with this is what is the Indus Valley civilization and the Indian subcontinent about 4,000 years back. It continued for 2,000 years till Alexander came to Indian subcontinent. Okay. And they took many things: silk, aromatic flowers, precious stone, clothes, metal, ivory, spices, and they brought gold. Okay. This is a Greek document, Periplus of the Earthian Sea. It's a Greek document dating to 1st century AD, clearly saying what was going on in the world then. Okay. Not only that, the west coast of India was a intersection point for people in Southeast Asia all the way from China to come and trade here. So people from Southeast Asia brought things here. People from West Asia came to trade. This was the intersection point where they exchanged, and they took Chinese porcelain and etc. from here all the way to Rome and Greece. So this west coast of India was not only a production center, it was also a trading point, particularly this Muziris, which is just on the outskirts of what is Cochin today. And you have a word called monsoon, which comes from the Arabic word mausam, which is basically trade winds. So that's why between April and September, people would come here, stay for 3 months, and get back between November and February. So between September and November, September, October, November, 3 months, they would stay in the west coast. So that's how, particularly in what is today Kerala, the Christianity and Islam came to India through trade. Whereas in North India, Islam and Christianity came through conquest. That's how the behavior of people in North India and South India belonging to the same sect is so different, because the source and the way it came is different. Okay. And you see how rich Indian subcontinent. This is the Academian Empire just before the blossoming of Roman Empire. You have all these kings like Darius, Xerxes, and all that. This was their kingdom. They had a lot of it from North Africa all the way up to Italy, the whole of Fertile Crescent, what is today part of Central Asia, up to the Indus Valley coast here. But you see here how much wealth they were getting. The total revenue collection of the kingdom was like this, and maximum revenue came from the Indus belt because maximum trade was already happening. This is 450 BC, little before Gautam Buddha. Okay. This is an empire. This is the revenue of the empire. The geographical part of the empire is very small here. This part is very small compared to the rest. But in terms of revenue, this is far bigger than any of them. Okay. So this is Darius, who claims himself to be, this is a stone inscription in today in Iran. So he says, he mentions all the countries around, and he says he's an Aryan and having Aryan lineage and all that. Okay. This is something very interesting. It's a very new slide which I got. This is the world in around 200 AD, okay, which means Africa was there, a lot of tribals and native population were there, this thing, but very little interaction with them. North America and South America was unknown. Australia was unknown. New Zealand was unknown. Not much was mentioned about Japan or Russia or even mainland China. So this is the Roman Empire. Rome had occupied even Britain, a little bit of North Africa, which is where this Carthage I mentioned was. This is Italy. This is Greece. Okay. This is residual Egyptian kingdom. This is where the Israel and Jordan today is. This is Roman Empire. So what this golden color shows is these are all the locations where Roman gold coins have been found. Finding Roman gold coins in the Roman Empire is very natural because gold coin was the currency of use and people have lost over years and so you find them. What about here then? These are all the places where Roman gold coins have been found, predominantly in west coast of India, quite a lot in what is Sri Lanka today, little in Orissa and Bengal, and scattered here and there few. But this part is interesting because it means Romans were bringing their gold coins here for trade. That's why today in Kerala, if you go, whether it's a Hindu, Christian, or Muslim marriage, you will see the bride wearing 2 to 3 kg gold because they've been used to using gold for last 3,000, 2,000 years. And even today, most of the jewelry gold companies are from Kerala. Okay. Today it's Kerala. Those days there was no Kerala. There was no Malayalam language also. It was completely Tamil. Cheras, Pandyas, and they are the ones who are ruling this. Malayalam is a 11th or 12th century language. So the question is, are any knowledge system foolproof? Are there no changes, etc.? Every knowledge system claim an element of sacredness, infallibility, God's command. It says, God has told, so you do this. Even if you know that it is not good for you or not good for contemporary times, they say it is God's order. Nobody has seen God ordering these things, but that's the way the scriptures have been formed and they force this. Practice over the years have shown all knowledge systems are inadequate for various reasons. Changing context makes it harder to adhere to. Many tenets are never tested, and when done so or questioned, it fails. Our only hope is self-correction. Self-correction and adaptation, change or reform. All this needs to be done. If it cannot be done, you need to abandon it because it is not good for you or for the society. You will see some dramatic conflict in every knowledge system. All of you are familiar with Galileo Galilei. Galileo discovered, he rediscovered planetary motion and then said sun is the center of the universe or the known universe then, and earth revolves around sun, which was told anti-Christian view because Bible says earth is the center and sun revolves around it. So he was put to death, and because he was famous, they didn't kill him. But in 1632, they put him on house arrest. And for 10 years, he was living inside a house, unable to come out, and he finally died in 1642. So similar things happened when Big Bang happened. So Pope had called for a seminar, all that. So you must be cautious. All knowledge systems can be very rigid and very subjective. They are not objective. Conflicts and contradictions in every knowledge system is very common. The goodness of a knowledge system is how it handles conflicts and contradictions. Does it accommodate change or it bulldozes earlier practices? This is the famous painting of Galileo defending himself against the Vatican Church. Similar thing happened in 2024 December. You may remember the figure here. This is Magnus Carlsen, the world's greatest chess player of all time so far. And he was not allowed to play tournament because he was wearing jeans and jacket. The rule is you must wear three-piece suit. You will see all this Pragnananda and Gukesh all the time wearing a three-piece suit and playing chess. So you can actually have very stupid rules which prevents the best person in the world from participate. This is how most knowledge systems are. You have to be very cautious, very careful, very objective. You cannot be subjective. You cannot say my grandfather was like this, so I'll be like this. In certain things, you have to be what your grandfather was. In many other things, you should not be what your grandfather is, okay, or was. So one of the reasons for the decline of Indian knowledge system, which produced the richest country in the world, culturally, knowledge-wise, economic, trade, and whatnot, okay? Indian knowledge systems was suppressed by the Arabic knowledge systems right from 12th century when the Delhi Sultanate started, okay? It was still vibrant in pockets, and many things you find in South, which is more of IKS than North, is because we didn't have this cultural suppression by the Islamic rule, unlike the North India, for a very long time. But the real damage to IKS came by when the British colonial rule started and Macaulay introduced his education system. You just see, this is Macaulay's address to the British Parliament on 2nd February 1835. He says, India is so rich, I have not seen a single beggar, I have not seen a single thief. Wealth I have seen in this country, such high moral values people have. We have to, unless we break the very backbone of this nation, which is our spiritual and cultural heritage, therefore I propose that we replace our old and ancient education system with our English system. This is Macaulay's address to Parliament. And because of Macaulay, the Indian knowledge systems was severely destroyed. In fact, he says, I have no knowledge of Sanskrit or Arabic, but English is better than Sanskrit and Arabic. This is the kind of thing. You see here how they were treating us. Royal Simla Club. No dogs are Indians. They were treating us worse than dogs. And this was how Macaulay planned. And unfortunately, UGC is continuing with that. UGC has continued Macaulay's plans for last 70 years. That's the reason why NEP is coming, so that at least we can get out of the Macaulay model. So what does knowledge system do? Knowledge system is related to cultural practices. It has collective wisdom over ages of experience and insights. It provides economic value for its people. For example, you have a festival and you have a lunch for the festival. So you have many items you have to procure. You have to use a lot of flowers. Somebody has to grow flowers. Somebody has to. So there is a supply chain of economic activity that gets built up around a culture so that many people make their livelihood. That's the reason why you need all this. You can say, I don't use flowers. It's okay. There is nothing wrong in not using flowers. But by buying flowers, you are giving an opportunity for a flower grower to make a living. We do a lot of unnecessary things, but lot of unnecessary things were done so that so many others can be part of our life. This is unfortunately changing today. Particularly in the urban area, the IT culture, nobody wants anybody. I order and it comes to me. So I have no relationship with others. I have no friends. That's why today people don't have friendships. People know a lot of people, particularly Facebook. They know 10,000 people on Facebook and not a single face they have seen physically. And they value that. Okay. In fact, people are becoming exceedingly stupid with modern technology. And I'm not surprised that you have so many problems in your generation. Okay. So specifically Indian knowledge system, it has tremendous diversity and forms of culture. Okay. Lot of it is oral and written tradition, predominantly oral, because writing started in India only when people started interacting with other cultures. For example, when the Romans and Mesopotamian people started interacting with us about 2,500 years back, that's when writing started. Till then, there was no need for writing because people believed words. Trust was there. People gave a word and they upheld the word. There was no need for writing. Writing started when you started dealing with an alien culture where there was no common culture or language. So somebody had to scribe it and keep it as a record. So that's how the Brahmi script and other things emerged around 2,500 years back. For 1,500 years before that, all the material was in oral form, like all the early Vedas and Shastras, all the epics, Ramayana, Mahabharata, early versions were all oral. Okay. So this is, and then it supports core-related dharma. Dharma is conduct, rules of conduct in a society. Yeah. So all knowledge systems are unsustainable. The only sustainable knowledge systems are indigenous knowledge. So here is one indigenous knowledge system in Brazil. Even today, it has a community housing for 100. So you see here, there are no walls. The common space here is a common space for everybody in that community. They live very holistic, very simple. They are sustainable, not like us. Okay. They have their own wisdom. For example, we experience very bad deaths in tsunami in the eastern coast of India, Tuticorin and south of Pondicherry, all that. That is because our wisdom is stupid. You see, what happens when tsunami occurs? Initially, water will go back quickly, exposing all the additional sand. So you see a lot of fishes lying. So many people went to grab the fish because it was freely available, not realizing that a tsunami wave will come after a few minutes, and it happened. Okay. Whereas Andaman, which experienced more severe tsunami, never did not have a single death because the native population who still live with bows and arrows, I have met them, I have seen them, they have a knowledge which says whenever the sea coast behaves irregular, go in the opposite direction, climb a tree and stay there. So as soon as tsunami occurred, all the native population in the Andaman's island, particularly the North Sentinel Island, climbed up the hill, climbed a tree and waited there for about 4 to 6 hours. Nobody died. Only people died who were urbanites near Pondicherry, Kadalur, Nagapatnam and Tuticorin. Okay. So you have many more native indigenous population in Andamans, the Jarvas, the Ongis, the Nicobaris, Shompens, Sentalis, plenty of them. In fact, one of the world's richest tribal population, indigenous knowledge. And this is how they live. These are the Shompen tribes in Nicobar Island. Even now they hunt like this and live. This is their house. And this is their dress. But they are a sustainable society. They can live like this for the next 10,000 years. Whereas we cannot live. For the next 100 years, we cannot live the way we are living. And unfortunately, this island is where they are, and this is being converted. They are being evicted out. Government of India is spending 70,000 crores to convert this into another duplicate Singapore. Similarly, you see what happened in West. This is how Africa was 2,500 years back. All native population, indigenous civilization. Today, you will see this. Africa is almost split vertically, horizontally. North Africa is all Islam. South Africa, Southern Africa is all dominated by Christians. The Western knowledge system converted this to this. So of course, we talk a lot about America. America is a very stupid place because you see, even in 1965, they didn't have voting rights for all women, even though it was 200 years before that they got independence. Okay. You will see this in South Africa. This is how African blacks live. This is how the whites live. And this main road divides whites from black. Similarly, in America, you can see that drinking water for white, drinking water for non-white. It happened up to 1968, 1970 in US. And here you see an African-American lady and family swimming. And this is the owner of the hotel who is coming and pouring acid into the water because black people are swimming. This is how US was. US today is a very racial country. You all have glamour. That's your problem. This is an interesting photo where an Australian Aborigine, that is a native indigenous population, original owners of Africa, of Australia, they had a first encounter with phone. Okay. And this is why economy wins over sustainability. Why English wins over other languages? Simply because English is a economic language. So IKS has been introduced in NEP just to undo a lot of distortions that have come up over the last 250 years and possibly another 1,000 years before that. There are problems of IKS. One is shortage of trained IKS faculty. The other is how many jobs will you get if you do IKS? That's another issue. There are a lot of standard books for IKS now used, but I have read most of them. But my recommendation for all of you from diverse background is don't miss this book. This is, if you read this one book, you don't have to read 90% of all the books in the world. So this is something so interesting. And particularly for people in Maharashtra, this Harari is a professor in anthropology and archaeology in Israel. But he comes every year for 2 months. He has been coming to India for the last 20 years. Every year, 2 months, he comes to Igatpuri Ashram near Nasik. And he is a trained Vipassana meditation expert. And he says this Vipassana meditation technique helped him think like this and write a book like this. But specifically for IKS, if you want, this is the best book in the world. Okay. It's a book which was released only 6 months back. It's an amazing book. And it clearly shows how important IKS was and how IKS dominated the entire world for 1,400 years. Today, the American economy dominates us just for 50 years. Indian economy was dominating the world for 1,400 years. So, a very good documentary proof of this. And there's special focus on IKS by Indian government, both for funding and projects and all that. So in conclusion, IKS is important. Many useful aspects have neither been given its due nor evaluated effectively. IKS has to contend and compete with other knowledge systems. Many, for example, fast food, internet, jeans and t-shirt, very difficult to compete with these four because the entire younger generation is hooked onto this. Okay. And of course, modern maths, technology, and life science now dominate. I'm sure many of you have either taken a Dolo or Crocin yesterday evening and come here. So the question is how, where, when, and how much of Indian knowledge system to be positioned in the gamut of our life.